Hi everyone, welcome to Wendy Speaks. I am your host D. First, let me just say thank you. Thank you for taking out time of your day, to be here. I know life is busy, you've got things to do, but somehow you've decided to spend some time listening to me talk today. And this means a lot to me, and I just want to say thank you. Wendy Speaks is a space for real conversations. We're going to be talking about adulthood, the parts that nobody really prepares you for. We'll be talking about work, relationship, personal growth, resilience, and how to actually build a life that makes sense instead of just reacting to whatever is happening around you. We're not going to be stating theories or trying to prove points. We are not here for motivation, even that does sound good, but it doesn't really work. We're here because life is real and it is hard, and you need someone to actually talk about it honestly. So, if you're still figuring things out, if you're still finding your footing, if you're still struggling, even if you're winning and you want to win better, then the space is for you. If you hear what resonates with you, do me a favor, like, share, follow, comment, and share it with someone that you love. Send it to that friend who needs to hear this. Post it in your group chats. You know, let's just grow together. Now let's dive into today's episode. You know what we love to do? We love to talk about trauma. We love to unpack everything that was hard about growing up here in Nigeria. And look, that conversation is very, very valid. But today we want to flip it. But honestly, if you look at it, we were actually given superpowers, and most of us don't even realize that we have them. We're so focused on what we didn't have that we completely ignore what we were programmed with. And that's what we're covering today. We're going to call it the good code. So I remember this moment. I was, you know, maybe a year into one of the organization, the first organization I worked with um, after my youth service, and we're in a meeting with like serious people, like people who have built real companies, people with capital, and I was the youngest in the room, by so far. And in my head, I'm thinking, um, okay, Dave, these people know more than you do, but they've done this before, but just listen, don't say anything stupid. And you know that voice, right? And as at that time we're working on a particular platform, we're trying to create an e-commerce platform for spare parts, right? And then something just happened. One of them said something about how they approach their team, and I just felt off. This was very off to me, like the logic didn't track, and I almost didn't say anything. I was just sitting there calculating the risk of speaking up, versus staying quiet. But then I remembered something I thought about growing up, about how my mom, was managing the entire household, juggling money, managing expectations, managing feeding, and keeping everyone together even when things were falling apart. I thought about how my parents navigated complex family dynamics, very various community obligations, even social hierarchies, and even in their work, right? And they were all doing this while making sure their kids felt safe and valued. That's a skill. Did you know that? So I spoke up, I told them what I thought, and they didn't even laugh. They took it seriously. And more importantly, I realized that the respect and the honor I was raised to give people, that's older people, and people or people that are more experienced than me, didn't have to mean I couldn't bring my own perspectives to the table. And those weren't mutually exclusive. And that was when it clicked to me that I wasn't really starting from behind. I was starting with tools of a whole lot of people in the room that I didn't have, right? Think about the Nigerian upbringing. You were taught deep respect, not fake respect. You were actually taught to respect people, the ability to understand hierarchy, the ability to show honor, the ability to read a room, know your place in the room. That's a massive soft skill, even in corporate environments, and that's networking gold. That's how you build relationships with people who can actually open doors that you are looking for. But here's what is actually wild. A lot of us think that respect means we can't assert ourselves. That's the programming, that's the confusion. But the strongest people I know, they have both, right? They have a deep reflection and deep respect for people and authority, but they also know their value. They can navigate up and sideways in an organization without being fake or losing any form of integrity. That's the real communal thing, right? We all grew up in a society where nobody really stands alone. Your parents probably helped cousins, took in neighbors, or were obligated, in some way to the extended family. It might have felt like a burden sometimes, but you absorbed something crucial from that. You understood people, you understood community, you understood how to build loyalty, and that's exactly what you need in a business now. Loyalty from customers, trust from your team, a network that actually shows up for you. That's not luck, that's because you were raised understanding how to be part of a community. And grit, man, grit, right? Growing up in Nigeria teaches you a light level grit. Electricity is a luxury in my country. Our systems fail constantly. Schools are unpredictable. You can hear ASO strike any day at any time. So we tend to learn to adapt, right? We don't panic in situations, when situations come up. Rather, we find alternative routes, right? We MacGyver our way through. And that's not even weakness, that is entrepreneurial genius. That's the exact mentality that separates people who build things from people who wait for perfect conditions. So here's what you actually need to do with this information. First, you need to do a life audit on your childhood, not looking for traumas, but looking for strength, right? What was your mom or your dad or your guardians really good at? What did you watch them handle with grace? I think you should write it down because that's somehow coded into you too. Tapping into that, brings out some form of strength. Were they great communicators? Were they great peacemakers, problem solvers, strategic thinkers? You inherited something from them, and that is, engraved in your operating system. Secondly, you have to identify which of these good codes are actually, you're actually using in your work. Be honest. Are you leveraging your natural respect and ability to navigate hierarchy? Are you using your community building skill? Are you leaning into your problem solving grit? A lot of us tend to suppress these things because we think we need to be something else to succeed. But that's wrong. You need to be more, you need to be full of yourself, right? Not in a negative way. You need to be more fully yourself, right? Not less of yourself. Third, tell yourself a different story about where you are coming from. The story isn't I grew up with less, so I'm starting from behind. The story is I grew up with different tools, and those tools make me dangerous in the right environment, because it is true. And fourth, start deploying these weapons consciously. When you are negotiating, lean into respect and honor. It builds some form of trust. When you are building a customer base, lean into that communal nature that you learned. It builds loyalty. When you are solving a hard problem, lean into the grit because it builds confidence. The good code isn't something that you need to acquire, it's something that is already within you and you need to activate. So we spend so much time trying to be like the people who grew up in different environments, that we forget that we are building totally differently, right, in our purpose. And that's the difference, not a disadvantage, right? So, and that is our superpower. Thank you for tuning in to When D Speaks today. I'll catch you on another episode. Thank you.